and welcome to our workshop, 10 Warning Signs of Alzheimer's, presented by the Alzheimer's Association Aloha Chapter. Thank you all for joining today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Miles Yoshioka. We're really proud to be able to provide these relatable workshops and presentations to our members and their employees. And it's really thanks to your fellow members and industry professionals who share in the Chamber's mission, to make our island a better place to live and to do business. And thanks to our hardworking committees, we continue to offer educational presentations, community service opportunities, online Pahana social events, which provide members the opportunity to enjoy themselves, network with other professionals, and importantly, to make connections. I would like to give a shout out to our healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, hospital housekeeping staff, technicians, office staff, medical service providers, and everybody else who continue to help care for our sick and to offer our continued vaccination and testing services. Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to quickly go around the room and ask you all to introduce yourselves so Nick knows who he's talking to. Just give us your name, title, and the company or organization you represent. Okay, so let's see. I'll start off with Keith, followed by Dinny. Keith,
Hi.
Keith.
So Keith Merrick, I'm with Edward Jones, which actually we are a big supporter of Alzheimer's. So this is something, I'm a financial advisor, so I need to know this information. So thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Dinny. I'm with Destination Hilo, and we are also very interested in the economy of Hilo and the tourism industry. And we're hoping the ships are coming back next year.
Thanks, Dinny. Okay, let's see. Let's have Noelani and followed by Glenn.
Aloha, my name is Noelani Tevis Whittington, and I am in Honolulu right now. I go back and forth between here and Volcano. I'm retired. My mother is 93 and was recently diagnosed with vascular dementia and Alzheimer's. So I'm not sure what I'm going to get out of this, but hopefully signs of what might be coming. Anyway, that's who I am. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Glenn Kagamita, and I'm retired. And I'm just tuning in because I'm getting up there and everybody around me is also getting up there. And it's just something very interesting and would be good to find out. Aloha.
Thanks, Glenn. Okay, let's go to Jessica and then followed by David.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Cariaga. I am the marketing coordinator at HFS Federal Credit Union. We are also a supporter of the Alzheimer's Association. So just here to learn a little bit more from Nick.
Thanks. David?
Hey everyone, Dave Garcia here, Wells Fargo Advisors, also a financial advisor. I kind of mentioned earlier on the call, definitely interested from a professional perspective to learn more about signs to look for, and also have some, my grandmother struggled with Alzheimer's, so have some personal experience as well. I know how hard it can be.
Thanks, Dave. Next, let's have Diana, NJ, and then Taylor will round it up.
Hi, I'm Diana Baiso. I work for TMT, the office administrator. And I'm here because my mother-in-law lives with me now and I take care of my parents and they're getting up there in age. So I'm just trying to get some information as to things and signs to look out for, because it seems like as they're getting older, there's things that concerning. So I just want to make sure I'm on top of it and understand if they're getting into Alzheimer or it's just part of getting old. So thank you very much for having this. It's looking forward to it.
Hello, I'm NJ Moses. I'm representing Hilo Toastmasters, and I'm here because I think this is an extremely interesting, timely topic, and I would like to learn more. Thank you.
Thanks, NJ. I'm going to put my friend Andrew on the spot since he's just jumped on. Andrew, you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, Miles, is that you?
Yep.
Talking
Can
to
hear
me?
you.
Sorry, I just got into my mail, so sorry, I'm running a little bit late. I'm Andrew Chan from KTA. How you guys doing? Hope you guys are having a good Friday.
We are. Thanks for being here, Andrew.
Yeah.
Okay, Taylor.
Hi, everybody. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, good. We're in the same office, so just want to make sure everything's working. I'm Taylor Escalona, Membership Administrator and Marketing for HICC.
Thank you, everyone. Our guest speaker today is Nick Los Baños. He's the Hawaii Island Regional Coordinator for the Alzheimer's Association Aloha chapter. He has been in this position since October of 2020 and is very passionate about finding an end to Alzheimer's. On top of that, Nick is also a doctoral candidate in the Doctor of Education in Leadership Innovation and Continuous Improvement Program at Concordia University, Wisconsin. Very fortunate to have Nick as a member, and welcome. It's all yours, Nick.
Thank you, Miles and Taylor, and welcome everybody. Aloha. I've been with the association for a year, but prior to this, I worked for a little bit over a year with Hawaii Care Choices. That's the hospice and palliative care provider here in East Hawaii. I also worked for the Hawaii County Office of Aging for 10 years, almost exactly to the date. So I've been working in the field with elderly caregivers for quite some time. On my personal side, my grandfather had Alzheimer's in his final years before he passed away. My dad's mom, my grandma on that side, had dementia in her final years. My grandmother here in Hilo, she's my last grandparent still living. She just turned 97 last week, and she is living with dementia. So, when I couple together the personal and the professional experience, I think I'm a pretty good fit for this position. And honestly, I don't know if any of you folks remember Chris Ridley. She used to be in this position quite some time back. When I met her when I started in 2009, I said, wow, I want to do that one day. And here I am. So, talk about #manifest, right? So anyway, I'm really excited to be here today. One of the things that the Alzheimer's Association does is really try to promote just brain health in general. This month is one of the things is it's Alzheimer's Awareness Month, right? And a lot of that really is understanding what it is. And like today, we're going to talk about those 10 warning signs and just kind of get you thinking about what it is. And I think Diana had mentioned, what is it? Is it Alzheimer's or is it something maybe just normal aging, right? When I think about my grandpa, he passed away in 2003. My grandma and my family just thought that's just what happens when you get old, right? That's just grandpa being a grumpy old man. And because he remembers all the horrible things we did to him, he's just being mean. Well, no, he had Alzheimer's disease. And it took our family quite some time to really come to accept that. I think it was actually like 7 years before my family participated in their first Alzheimer's event and said, oh, it's real. That's not just a grouchy old man. Okay, well, I'm not going to say that you cannot have grouchy old man because I'm on my route to that. But, there are differences between what is normal aging and what is not. And so let me start sharing my screen and we can go through. As far as chamber members, though, being a business, one of my I think about my time at the credit union. Sorry, see you Hawaii, Jessica. But when I worked there, I remember working with members who would do these transactions that were just so weird, right? And then they would call you right back and say, hey, I didn't do that. And you're like, wait, I just saw you, and I this is your signature on the paper, right? And so, you know, I think about even those time, you know, back in those days, just seeing that in public, right? Or I think about now, you know, that I'm in the field, I walk around, you know, KTA, and I think that lady is repeating herself to that worker like 10 times in a row, and there might be something going on. And just being cognizant of this, you know, I think about it like anything else, right? If somebody has diabetes, you just say, oh, I have diabetes, right? Okay, so I eat less sugar. Okay, so everybody kind of understands that. Brain health isn't there yet, right? We're just trying to get brain health to be just like those things, right? Your heart, your blood sugar, and just kind of normalize the conversation about that. That's I think one of the biggest things. All right, so 10 warning signs. You know, these are what we're talking about today is really just describing what is typical age-related changes in memory, thinking, and behavior. So those three things right there are really the things that you're going to look at when it comes to Alzheimer's or other types of dementia. We're going to look at those common warning signs, and we'll also talk a little bit about how to approach somebody, you know, when you have potential memory concerns. One of the handouts that I gave you is actually a worksheet that kind of guides you through if you are ever in a position to do this. Now, I don't think a lot of families say, oh, sure, let me just do this worksheet and do it. It's not the easiest thing to do. Honestly, most families just avoid it and have, you know, a professional in the field do it, you know, that third party or the doctor, which is totally fine. And then we'll talk a little bit about the importance of just why we should have early detection and the benefits of getting the diagnosis as early as possible. And then we'll end up today with some resources, and I'll share a little bit about what I do for the community here. I am one of maybe 10 people in the state that work for the chapter. I'm the only one on this island though, so sorry, you're stuck with me. All right, so let's get started. So this is a shortened version of our usual program. So we're going to skip through some of the artistic things that we just skipped through. But the first thing I want to talk about is what the difference is between dementia and Alzheimer's. So we have a couple of experts here that are going to share some of those things. And so let me play these videos. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask, or if you want to use the chat, go ahead and do that.
Dementia is the umbrella term for an individual's changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. There are many possible causes of dementia, and Alzheimer's is the most common cause. Other causes of dementia are vascular dementia, which is marked by changes in the blood flow in the blood vessels in the brain. Dementia with Lewy bodies, identified by specific brain changes throughout the brain that include the buildup of a protein known as alpha-synuclein. And frontal temporal dementia, which is marked by brain cell loss in the front sections of the brain or the frontal lobe. Each type of dementia may have distinct characteristics to cause specific behaviors in the individual, but there is also some overlap in behaviors among the types of dementia.
So as we saw there, that's probably one of the biggest questions we get. What's the difference? And Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. I think of it like the word dementia is the word soup, and Alzheimer's might be like miso soup, and vascular dementia might be chicken noodle soup. I will say that Alzheimer's is often used interchangeably because it is the most prevalent. So you see in all of these diagnoses, I think it's about 80% are usually an Alzheimer's type. But I think like Noelani, like you shared, right, you've seen both, and that's something that's being, with all of the technology, they can actually isolate the different types. And they're finding that people with Alzheimer's will also have another type or vice versa. So let's talk a little bit about, we're going to hear from Dr. Hartley. He's going to share what Alzheimer's disease is specifically, though. I think that's really important to understand, because when you see what happens, I think I compare this to something like a heart attack. It's very, you can tell what happens, right? Doctors can tell, okay, blockage or whatever caused the heart attack. Like for my family and a lot of people, unless they understand what it is, they might just think, right? Nope, he's just grumpy or bad day or medication. And it could be. I'm not going to say, I don't think that, I do want people to also think of those things. But when there's, some obvious patterns of these changes that we'll talk about, that's when it's really important to check to see what it might be. If it's Alzheimer's, another type, or none of the above.
More than 100 years ago, Dr. Alice Alzheimer's described specific changes in the brain, what we call the formation of plaques and tangles. Now, Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disease that's marked by these key changes and is thought to impact memory, thinking, and behavior. The brain has three main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Each one plays a role in how the body functions. The cerebrum fills up most of your skull. It is part of the brain most involved in remembering, problem solving, thinking, and even feelings. There are about 100 billion nerve cells or neurons throughout the brain that transmit messages in order for us to create memories, feelings, and thoughts. Alzheimer's disease causes nerve cells to die, which leads to the brain tissue loss, or what we call shrinkage, and causes loss of function and communication between cells. These changes can cause the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, such as memory loss, problems with thinking, planning, behavioral issues, and even at the end stages, problems with swallowing.
So what has happened is the Alzheimer's Association has created a list of 10 most common warning signs of Alzheimer's. So this is not intended to be a diagnostic tool of any sort. You know, a lot of times, you know, people, especially now with the internet, yeah, and what happened with the COVID-19 is people become Facebook doctors. It's very interesting. Some of them challenged me in my own field, and I said, no, I don't think you read that right. But in any case, this is not intended to be a diagnostic tool. It's really just to kind of get you thinking if you are, you know, living with somebody or working with somebody who might be displaying some of these things. So let's go through each of these really quickly. So the first very obvious one that I think a lot of people associate dementia and Alzheimer's with is that it's memory loss, right? And it's memory loss to the point where your life gets disrupted. All right. So early on, this is often the first sign that people will see. Now, in terms of the difference between like Alzheimer's related type of memory loss versus age related change, because, you know, as we get older, you know, I think our brain stops growing cells. And so do all your crosswords now. Just say that as, you know, don't wait. So a more typical age related change might be, you know, we all forget, right? I mean, I forget, I don't know where this thing is half the time of my day, right? This phone. And so, but I'm able to retrace and find it later, right? That's the difference, right? People with Alzheimer's or dementias will often not have that ability to retrace. Okay, so that's the difference there. Number two, challenges in planning and solving problems. You know, not everybody is into making agendas and, you know, using planners. And, you know, I know some people are so into doing planners and they have like every moment of their day so structured, which, yeah, that's just not a preference for me. But the difference here is really, you know, when I think about planning, right? Let's say they are going to go to the store and they're going to buy something that's $5, but they take $1, right? And they can't figure out why they didn't have enough, right? So that ability to see forward what's going to happen and prepare for that and carry out that plan versus, you know, if you're, okay, I'm pretty good because I worked in the financial industry, but, you know, balancing your checkbook, not everybody's good at that. And, you know, so if that's a normal thing for you where you struggle with that, then making a mistake on something like that is probably not a warning sign for you, right? Conversely, if somebody is excellent, has been, you know, an accountant to the T, and now they start making mistakes, then you might have to think about that a little differently. So that leads us to number three, familiar tasks, right? When somebody has problems doing something that they've always done or regularly done with ease, that's also a sign. Now, I use the example of this because I don't have cable. I don't watch TV. I just have the internet. And if I want to watch something, I look for it there. But that cable, what is that? Time Warner cable box and all the things now you have to have, like, my grandma used to call me. That was one of the things I would try to help her with. And she'd be like, what button? I'm like, why are there so many buttons? So that's different, right? Versus like if you had the same microwave forever and now you can't figure it out, you know, that's a little bit different. Number four is confusion with time or place. And a lot of times when clinicians screen people, not diagnose, but just screen somebody, they ask about those things. Where are you? What day it is? What year it is? Do you know the season? Those kinds of things. If you can't immediately figure that out, you know, I mean, if you ask me what day it is today, I probably have to look at the calendar. But at least I know it's November somewhere in the first week. People with Alzheimer's or dementia will often not be able to trace that. Give you an example. I remember a guy came into the Office of Aging one day and he came in, did what he needed to do, but there was something kind of iffy about him. And we realized he wasn't leaving. So we asked him, oh, did you need something, right? And he drove. And he was like, oh, no. But he stayed in our lobby for maybe 30 minutes, just like doing nothing. And so one of our social workers went out and said, hey, just wanted to ask you a couple of questions. And he didn't know what year it was. He didn't know what season or month it was. He didn't know what day of the week it was. Now, in general, you would probably be able to answer one of those, right? I know it's 2021. I know it's winter pretty soon. It's fall, whatever. He was way off. I think he gave us a date that was like, I don't know, 20 years ago. So very, very, confusion with time or place. And this is, a lot of times you look at this as normal places, right? Of course, if you go someplace new, they might not know. Number 5 is trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. Sometimes people, not sometimes, but often you'll have because it's the brain, right? Doing things in there. And like they didn't really do a good job in this quick video, but the parts of the brains are actually starting to malfunction, right? And, your brain is connected to your eyeballs. So the visual thing, there's a little bit of a difference there. So a normal age-related change might be cataracts, right? Or something like that, or something obvious like glaucoma, right? They can tell what's causing it. In somebody with Alzheimer's, it's not necessarily a physical problem in the eyeball. It's more because their brain can't process vision correctly. So they go to the eye doctor and they can pass all the tests. And so the family gets so confused, but it's because the brain can't translate what they're seeing. And a lot of times it's things like depth, or popular one, the colors on the stop sign, the stoplight, which is why, driving when you have Alzheimer's can be difficult at some points. And so it's vision is a part of it, but it's because the brain is not processing correctly. It's not because there's some other underlying cause. Number 6 is speaking, especially in the middle of the disease, phase of the disease, just having trouble using the right words, or even language-wise. My grandma had a stroke a couple of years ago, and she already had been diagnosed with dementia, and it was already taking its toll. When she woke up, she was speaking Japanese, which she did. But for us, we're like, oh no, here we go, right? And so there's only a handful of us that can talk to her. My mom's generation, they skipped Japanese. It wasn't cool to be Japanese back then. My generation, the grandkids, we could talk to her. So we had to do that for a little bit because her brain was only using Japanese. It was so odd because she woke up and she was like, da, 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 da. We're like, no, really? This is so weird. But it does happen. And it's partially the stroke, but also with people with Alzheimer's, what's happening is their current memories are going. So if they grew up speaking another language, those things often will come up. My grandfather spoke Olelo Hawaii in his last couple of weeks, and we're like, whoa, okay. Can somebody, we scraped by, we could do it, right? We paid attention enough, but it's just something that catches you off guard if you're not expecting it. But it can be also things like using the wrong word, or if I don't know what this, okay, well, that was a pen. If I can't remember the word pen, I might know this is the thing I write with on paper, but I don't know I can't figure out the word pen. So that's another one that you start to see. Number 7, misplacing things. Now the key here between Alzheimer's and regular aging or normal aging is the ability to retrace the steps. Okay, so like my phone, I can usually find it, hopefully, within a couple minutes if I just kind of go, okay, well, I went to the kitchen, I put it there, I made my coffee, whatever. Somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia probably, a lot of times will not be able to retrace, or they might actually go a total different route and say somebody stole it. That's a popular one too. Right. And so that was actually one of the things I saw at the credit union. They would come in and say, you're stealing money from my account, all these withdrawals. And we're like looking at her receipt and we're like, no, that's your signature right there. And she wasn't able to retrace that she did it that day. Number 8, decreased or poor judgment. And a lot of times this is unfortunately where you see a lot of neglect or abuse happen. And not to say that, not to down anybody who's trying to make, a good business out there, but we often see this with things like people driving up to seniors' homes and saying, hey, I'll cut your trees for you. I'll charge you $100. Okay. And, honestly, my grandma's generation is very trusting, right? That older generation, they're so used to this. That's how their neighborhood was structured, right? The kumiai is like, go next door, help Mr. So-and-so, just tell them who you are. And they'll do it. Not so much anymore, right? I think our community has changed a lot since then. So I've seen that where it's like either power washing the driveway or, working on that broken car. And so they'll say, right? If you pay me up front, I'll come tomorrow. Well, they pay and tomorrow never comes. So I've seen that over the years, but just judgment in general, a lot of times it's most pronounced though with financial. You also see it with health, not being able to, figure out that, oh, I'm bleeding, so maybe I should do something. And then, so we used to see a lot of just random scratches. If they scratch their arm and they don't take care of it, it gets infected. And it's so weird that they didn't say anything, but their brain can't figure out that I should do something. That's what that is. And number 9, withdrawal from social and work activities. A lot of times, because of those other things up there, they can't, their conversation skills start to dwindle. And they, at a certain point, I think they know, right? They can figure out, I'm not able to participate and talk story with my friends. I don't feel comfortable. And you start to see them withdraw. That's a popular one as well. Versus somebody like me, a couple of people asked me if I wanted to join the young professionals group for the chamber, and I said, thank you very much, but I am not. I'm on the other side already, so I can't join. But I think about just as even at this age now, I've changed a lot from my younger years, right? So as you get older, of course you're gonna, I don't want to go hang out with everybody every weekend. I like alone time sometimes, right? So that's normal. But this number 9 here is really about, they know they can't communicate and connect with people as they could before. And so they stop, hanging out because it's embarrassing or it's just such a challenge to do that. And number 10, just seeing changes in mood and personality. And this one is tricky because a lot of times this could be other things as well. It could be, one popular one is blood sugar. If your blood sugar is skyrocketing or going too low, that can trigger some behaviors that look funky and could be like Alzheimer's. So, versus normal age related where, I think we just change over the years. I think about my several decades that I've been around, and I'm quite different from my 20s. I'll say that. So these are the main 10 warning signs. Again, this is not intended to be diagnostic by any means, but it's really just to kind of get you thinking. I will send, Taylor, maybe I'll send you the handouts. I don't know if the ones I sent had these spelled out as much, but I'll send you another handout that has a little bit more details on that regular, normal age-related change versus what might be potential Alzheimer's. I think about people who call me and say, oh, you know what, I forgot, like this lady called me, so cute. I forgot where I put my purse. I think I have Alzheimer's. I said, but did you find it? Oh yeah, I found it later. I was like, okay, that's normal. Oh, is it? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Now, if she couldn't find it and she called me 10 times, then I would probably take a different route. But so, I mean, that's, I think it's what I'm trying to get to is just really better safe than sorry. It's just like if you was to go to the doctor and say, I have chest pains. That's kind of a normal, right? I have chest pains. I got to call the doctor. Same thing with this, just trying to normalize brain health. But in any case, any questions about these 10 before I talk about why it's important to, okay, we'll have time at the end and feel free to, jot down your questions. But early detection is important because, right now there is no cure, unfortunately, hence we are here doing our work. And, I think about just the treatments that are available. This presentation doesn't really talk about it, but there are treatments available for the symptoms, right? So the symptoms are like the behaviors that we talked about. Sometimes the medications can help people just act better or get rid of some of the maybe anxiety that comes along with Alzheimer's, but it's not going to cure any of the brain stuff going on. In June, though, I'm super excited. The FDA approved the first of its kind, a drug that actually does something to the pieces of the brain that gets affected. So that's exciting, right? Super cool. Of course, it costs $50-something thousand a year to get the treatment. And so we are fighting that now, saying, thank you for your science, but you're going to rip everybody off. That's horrible. But anyway, I think in general, early detection is really important. We're going to hear a little bit from Dr. Salloway. He is a dementia expert. I'm sorry, I can't remember what university he works at, but he's going to talk a little bit about this piece here. And then we're going to hear from a care partner, Mary. She noticed changes in her husband. One of the terms we use here is care partner versus, you might be familiar with the term caregiver, right? When somebody has Alzheimer's, especially in the earlier phases, people don't often need things done for them or to them, right? So a lot of it is just helping them out, cueing them, or just kind of like, getting their attention or pointing something out versus giving them a bath, right? I think of caregiving as like, okay, I'm doing stuff now. So you might hear me say care partner. So let's hear about this, about early detection.
It's a very interesting phenomena that people who have memory problems are often less aware of it than family members or their friends who know them well. One of the reasons for that is our ability to monitor ourselves which is an important part of brain function, decreases when we start having memory problems. Not in everybody, but commonly, and more than half the people with memory problems. And so the person is just not keeping track of the trouble they're having day to day. But the family members are, paying attention. If they're paying attention, they see, boy, this is starting to happen a lot, and the person's not aware of it. So the family's more aware, and they may talk to their loved one about it, and they say, I've noticed you've been repeating yourself. And they say, I'm not repeating myself. And that could either be due to the fact that they're not aware of it, or they may not want to acknowledge it.
I was so adamant about what was happening to Daryl. I wasn't sure. I didn't know. And this wasn't the person that I know. This wasn't the person. Daryl was my husband was very, he always had to be building or designing or working with his hands. And it was getting to the point where he wasn't, and he was becoming very frustrated when he was forgetting to do things or go places.
All right, so you heard Mary talk there about how her husband was changed. And a lot of times who notices first is somebody that's very close to the person that has seen them for over time, right? A lot of times, family members will, maybe one child lives in the same state in Hilo and the rest have moved away. And then they come back for the holidays and it's like, bam, mom's different. A lot of times that happens too, right? So as the holidays come around, I'm expecting that people will call me because I think about the Office of Aging. A lot of times when the families get back together, they start noticing things that they haven't seen, right, over the last year or so. So, regardless of who it is, we made this little roadmap here at the association. This is one of the handouts that I gave you. Just really quickly go through some of the, again, this is not, this is exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to go in terms of elderly care and just Alzheimer's in general. Things are never going to go exactly like this nice little path here. So just be prepared. It's a journey. But when you do have somebody, when you do, if you do have somebody who is struggling with memory or behavior changes, these are the general steps. So just kind of think about what those changes are. What are you observing? And I encourage families to really keep journals about this because the doctor will see the person for 10 minutes, 15 minutes if you're lucky. They're not going to be able to capture the entirety of what's going on in that visit. So a lot of times we coach families to take notes to the doctor or call the doctor ahead of time if can, and just say, hey, you know what, my mom's coming in next week. These are some of the things, just so that's on their radar, because just like we're trying to make brain health normalized as a part of the community and our lives, it's not for the doctors yet. We're still trying to work with our primary care folks to make sure that they are considering, brain health as a regular part of their screening, especially for those who are 65 and older. As part of Medicare's program, you get your free wellness exam every year, right? And so part of that is brain screening, brain health screening. Other things going on, just kind of taking notes again, environmental things, changes. 3, I think learning again about what's going on, what happens in Alzheimer's and dementia and what doesn't happen in those situations can be really helpful to help, move forward and action or not. Checking if anybody else noticed. I think that's important. A lot of times it's the child or the spouse, and maybe there's a friend that they go to church with, and just checking in with them. Yeah, saying, you notice your mom is having some issues. I know that sometimes they're tight like this, and they'll say no, but they know something's wrong. I have a family that I'm working with now where the best friends pick up the mom and go along with everything, even though she's full-blown Alzheimer's, like full-blown. And they'll tell her, your daughter's trying to just be mean to you. You're fine. And the daughter's like, are you serious? Like, she can't even know. Like, she runs down the street to the highway and runs away. Like, are you sure? So, it's really hard, not just for the family, but for everybody who is involved in this person. Getting people around them to notice it can be really helpful. Then have that. And there's a guide that I gave you. It can be really, really hard. So think about who should be there. And sometimes it's not the best to have. It can be the doctor. It can be for the Office of Aging counseling. And they take a story with you guys about, hey, mom, your daughter called and is wondering if you could talk a little bit about your forgetfulness or whatever. So just really think about it. Again, a lot of this has to do with, you know, the person, or whoever knows the person best can really think about the best to have this discussion, who should be there, who should not be there. Number 6 is where to have it. You know, sometimes I had a family back in the several years ago who said, you know, this is really cool. I think we're going to be all on board with it. We're going to have a party. And then tell her there. I'm like, you're going to tell your mom at a party that she has memory problems? That's kind of weird, right? But they thought, no, I think she's going to appreciate it. Okay, most times it's a private conversation, but for that family, fine, go for it. You know, think about what you're going to have to say. I think there's on that handle as well.
Hey, Nick, I'm just gonna interrupt quick. Can you double check your plug? I don't think it's all the way in. You're going in and out.
Oh. Yeah, how's that? Is it good? Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's whacking my shirt over here. Sorry about that. And then when it gets to the point where you are, are you able to, can you hear me now?
Okay, is that working? Why is
Yeah, you're coming in a little softer. But you mind saying something?
testing, 1, 2, 3. It's not. I'm not sure what happened there.
It seems to be okay now.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's so funny because I don't see the thing moving on my side. So, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry, when it gets to the point where you are having to now say, let's go see the doctor, you know, again, think about how they would react. If they don't want to be with somebody, fine. If they want support, fine. And, you know, I don't think it ever happens where they are like, yeah, I have memory problems. I must have something wrong. Generally, that's not how that goes. So, you know, if you have that pushback, then definitely be ready to have multiple conversations and then reach out for support to Alzheimer's Association. And, you know, one of the things I provide is care consults where we can talk story about just what's going on, what the experiences are, why you think there's some memory concerns, and I can help guide the family with to some resources. A lot of times I also coach them on how to, you know, get ready to go to the doctor and just kind of walking them through those 10 steps. Again, I have that handout that Taylor had sent out, and there's a worksheet on how you can kind of conceptualize these things if you needed to. But I'm more than happy to do that with anybody who needs help. Okay, I know that we've come up with time, so I think the last thing I want to do is talk about some of the resources that I provide. I want to point out the 24/7 helpline. I think this is important because, you know, caregiving doesn't have a schedule. You can have caregiving duties 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, or whenever, right? Especially with Alzheimer's, it often throws off people's sleep patterns. So anytime there's a question, it can be as simple as what is dementia versus Alzheimer's, or it can be it's 3 o'clock in the morning here in Hawaii and I am struggling because my mom is just being such a chore for the last 10 hours. I need help. That helpline is staffed by master's level clinicians, so they can, you know, do a little bit of that type of level of care as well. Website, tons of things at alz.org. If you /Hawaii, you can get to our Hawaii specific page. That last one there is the community resource finder. You can check it out, but I will say for Big Island, it is not exactly up to date. So this is where I throw in the plug for the Hawaii County Office of Aging, not because I work there, but it is a valuable resource. I usually will make sure my clients are connected with them as well. Again, they provide counseling on some of the options for care or resources in the community as well. So with that said, I think we are on to question and answer, but I know that was really quick, but take a look at those handouts and I'm going to start sharing. And sorry about the music. We have these, you notice that wasn't a PowerPoint, that was this fancy video thing that we teach off of, and sometimes it's just doing its own thing. But anyway, I know that was really quick, and it was very condensed. So any questions, about anything, not just about these things, but Alzheimer's is dementia related. Feel free to chime in. I don't know if you guys want, Taylor, if you want to do chat kind or.
Yeah. Nick, there, Noelani made a comment in the chat. You can see it. Okay.
Yeah, I got it. So, yeah, Noelani, so in your recent experience with the disease, yes. So the Alzheimer's and dementias generally are very gradual, and so that's one of the things that, it's not on here because it's a more of a clinical thing, but I've seen families come in and say, my mom stopped, she can't remember anybody. And I'm like, okay, how long has this been happening? Oh, last week. That's not how Alzheimer's or dementia will generally progress. So when it is sudden, something sudden like that, I encourage folks to see the doctor right away, because often it'll be something else. Like I said, one of the examples was blood sugar, even blood pressure. One that's, even more alarming is sepsis. And sometimes people don't know that's going on, right? And sepsis is when your kidneys aren't processing correctly. So that's one that looks just like dementia, but it happens suddenly versus gradual, right? And I think that's why one of the things I mentioned, if you start to notice changes, just kind of jot those down, right? Because you're going to be, okay, so I think about my grandma getting diagnosed maybe 7 years ago. I can't remember every single thing that happened along the way. So, just having that can help the doctors, because, a lot of primary physicians are not trained to look at this, right? I will put a plug in for those geriatric specialists. I think they're not that many, but like Dr. Taylor, one of the very few who have a practice outside of a facility that are specialized in geriatric medicine. So she's very, very, trained in this. And so, but she fills up so fast, right? No offense, Hilo's getting older. I mean, we're getting older in this town, right? And I think it's only this is the baby boomer, right, era, now getting older. And so when I think about Hawaii too, right, we live longer in Hawaii. And the most prevalent risk factor for Alzheimer's is age. The older you are, the more at risk you are for Alzheimer's, because your brain having to work longer. But yeah, so it is hard. And so kind of following up with Ashley's question there, yes, a lot of times what you will see, and I think it's on one of the handouts, you'll see a list of specialists. And honestly, if the primary care physician is not comfortable or not trained to do it themselves, they will often, in most cases, make that next referral to a neurologist or a specialist. Hilo a little bit different, right? Because we don't have too many choices. So it can be a challenge. And I've worked with some doctors, unfortunately, who still say, well, there's no cure, so what you gonna do? Okay, true, right? True, there is no cure, but there are so many other things that the family can prepare for and train on and do to make that loved one's life as best as possible, right? And maybe there's no medicinal thing to cure them, but just the way that they think and train themselves to not react this way. I mean, that's why we're here, right? I teach a lot of classes. One of my most popular classes is just understanding how behavior changes with somebody who has dementia and how to respond, right? Because even us, right? We know all about it, but it's still like, God, she's repeating again and again, shut up, right? And it's like, God, why is she like that? Well, that's not always the best response, or never is the best response, right? Especially if you know. So yeah, it can be really hard, but a specialist for sure, and once there's, the doctor figures there's concern, they do a lot of things. There's the handout I gave has, a list of tests that possibly can be done. A lot of it is history, health history. They will do blood tests. Nowadays, back when I started in this field, this wasn't common practice, but they can do all of the CAT scans, the MRIs, the PET scans to look for Alzheimer's disease and other dementias or anything else going on in the brain. Noelani, you had a question. Go ahead.
My question was, I know you don't have time for this, but there's a financial situation in here in which you're dealing with somebody with Alzheimer's, and you have to now assume the financial responsibility, for which gets very clogged legally,
yes.
And banks and financial institutions. Yesterday, my attorney said, you have to ask, like in my case, my mother, to resign as trustee, and then allows me to come forward. But in the meantime, it is extremely hairy with the monies and checks, and it's not something, but I do believe that we need to be aware of it, that there's some financial complications that arise that stop us from taking control over our parents when financial institutions don't support the fact that they're dealing with an Alzheimer person. Yes, I just wanted to point that out.
Sure, and maybe I'll say a couple things about that. So we do, I do teach a class about legal and financial planning. It's not legal advice at all, but we do talk about some of the tools that you can use. And I think one of the biggest plugs for early diagnosis is, and whether you have it or not, I think everybody should be doing this, is really just looking at what those plans are going to be, right? An easy one is power of attorney, right? But the key here is that person, you want to diagnose them or at least get them involved as early as possible. One of the misconceptions, hopefully not anymore, was that once you're diagnosed, nothing you say matters, right? Because your brain's not working. And that's not true. People can be diagnosed early on and still participate in planning their finances and their legal things and everything else. And this is where it's really important to get that started early, right? If the person can't answer what day or season it is, then they are likely not going to be able to plan what they want to do with their estate, right? Or their money. So getting all of that taken care of as early as possible is super important. Now, from the financial industry, Jessica, I don't know if this is how it is now. We were at CU Hawaii, we couldn't do anything unless the person was on the account card, because we had a rash of fake power of attorneys. We had people come in and say, oh, my mom is sick, I'm the power of attorney here. And we were like, how do I know? I don't know you, right? So a lot of that too is early on in the account creation. Or what we've seen is, as they get older and maybe they do start having some memory problems and maybe they do have an early diagnosis, they can come in and start doing that now while they have that capacity, right? Unfortunately, that's the tricky part, right? How does somebody determine whether they are incapacitated or not, right? And that's where the legal and medical community goes, it's you, it's you, it's you, it's you. And sometimes doctors don't want to do that, right? Even though maybe the parent is like obviously not able to do anything to that extent of planning or deciding, but the doctor feels like, oh, I feel like I'm doing your family a shame, and I don't want to write that letter or say that, make that diagnosis. It's a challenge because there's a huge cultural component to this as well. But early as possible, power of attorney, advanced healthcare directives, all those kinds of things, get those aligned. Unfortunately, though, once the person does, become incompetent or is declared incompetent, then yeah, those documents stand as is and changes can't be made. But it is tough. I don't think it's easy at all. And even if you do all of the paperwork and you get it all done, you're ready to go, there's still dynamics from family, other people. I've seen families who are like, but I'm the power of attorney. Why are my siblings fighting? Because that's your sibling. That's something that I think no matter how prepared you are, there are going to be family dynamics. Unless your family's really tight. I did a counseling session with 9 family members, all there because mom had Alzheimer's, and they're like, let's just do this together. And I was like, this is so impressive, but not every family's like that. Even mine. I work in the field and my mom is the sole caregiver. We don't know where the rest of the family is already, right? It's just not for them, and that's okay too. That's okay too. But earlier the better with all of that stuff. And yes, Jessica mentioned about the crossword Sudoku, anything. Yeah, so a lot of studies now are looking at lifestyle, right? What we do, eating, I mean, it's kind of obvious stuff, but at least there's the research now, right? If you eat healthy, exercise, I will say plant-based, Miles, plant-based diet is actually helping, is showing that it helps your brain be healthier. And so I actually have a presentation this month with Hui Malama Olana Uivi's dietitian. She's going to be doing a session on, she's going to do a piece on plant-based eating and how that helps your brain be healthier, because the science is showing everything you do health-wise that you would do for your heart, your blood sugar, etc., helps your brain because your brain gets blood, right? So it makes sense. I mean, in theory, it makes sense, but the research is really trying to fill in those gaps to say it is true. Doing exercises definitely can help because you're trying to they call it brain elasticity, right? The more you can teach old dogs new tricks, let's just put it that way, right? And a lot of times those are used. They do have to be used a little bit early on. Once the brain starts to deteriorate with the Alzheimer's, it can be really challenging. There's, really nothing you can do to reverse that. But for sure, let's all start now with that's why I said, start now with your crosswords and your word finds. The Where's Waldo, I think, is, those kinds of visual exercises also very helpful. Any other questions? I know that on my side, you guys said, we can talk story after. I don't know, Miles, if you guys want to hang out, but I'm here to answer anything because I know that I flew through that. So But thank you so much. And yes, thank you to our supporters who are chamber members, HFS and Edward Jones, a national sponsor. Incredible. Thank you so much for your folks' support. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Nick. This helped open my eyes on some stuff. And, for all of us, I think it's good that we have some takeaways from this that, will allow us to see what we can do and recognize when we see changes in family members' personalities, friends, or in, like Taylor's case, coworker. But and like Nick said, we will hang around here for a while. So if there's, if you want to talk with a smaller group or want to reach out to Nick directly, you have his contact information. But thank you very much. I did want to share with all of you some reminders about some upcoming events. Big one coming up is our Healthcare Hero Mahalo concert. We are really excited about this one. A hui of chambers from around our island came together to put this event together as a way of saying mahalo to all of our healthcare workers. Not only nurses and doctors on the front lines, but all those involved in vaccinations and testing, the National Guard guys who give their time. So this is coming up tomorrow night from 6 to 9 on Naleo TV, channel 54, and our Facebook. And an e-blast just went out to you guys. We also have I'll let Taylor catch up. She's jamming along here. Our young professionals professional development class, and this is for all members, all of our member employees, friends. It's the 4 tendencies, how do I respond to expectations? This is presented by Thomas Grimmel from HPM Building Supply, and that's on Tuesday, November 2nd. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. November 9th, 2021, this year. And you can sign up on our chamber website. You can provide payment information and registration on that. Our next event we have is our social committee's cooking class with assistance from Suisan and Kadota Liquor. So you'll learn how to make poke wontons, holiday guava glazed ham, and spinach quiche. And of course, Ryan will be adding his 2 cents on what kind of wine pairings you can do. So that's coming up on the November 10th. That's a fun one. And again, you can sign up on our website. And lastly, our employment law seminar. We have offered this for, over 20 years. And it's thanks to the help of the attorneys of Turkles and Katz, Hetherington, Harris, and Kenorick, who have offered their time on this. Actually, it's a fundraising event for the chamber. You'll learn about a lot of the HR laws. A lot of changes been coming down the pipe from the federal government. But today is the last day for early bird pricing, $150. After today, it's up to $175 for chamber members and as well as SHRM members. But you'll get the latest edition of the chamber desk manual. It's about that thick. No, it's about that thick, on updates on HR laws. And it'll include information on COVID, ADA, immigration, you name it. It's in there. So it's a great asset for our members. But Oh, Keith, question.
Yeah, just a quick plug. Had received an email yesterday that there's a generous donor matching up to $5,000 by the end of today for Alzheimer's donations. I sent you that, and Miles, I sent you and Taylor that email. If you guys want to forward it to the group, because any donation by the end of the day today will get doubled. So,
Wow, nice. Thank you. Thanks for the heads up, Keith. Okay, that's all I have. Any other last announcements, guys? Okay, well, thank you all for being here. And like I said, we'll hang around for a few minutes if anybody wants to just hang with us, bring your lunch.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much.
But thank you, everybody.
Great job.
Have a
Have a
great
good
weekend.
weekend.